that opportunity is there. The time is there. So
I agree
do
with
something
you.
as quick as you can. I personally am so thrilled to be on the stage with you, for one, Andrew, and what Beard Bros and what this platform is giving to that. As a kid who grew up with never seeing his dad outside of glass, so it hits home for a lot of people, and I think there's a lot of impact that can happen for folks. So
Your dad was in prison?
a whole life, I never saw him outside of glass.
We are here at Hall of Flowers, MITA Unshackled, in partnership with the Beard Bros and the GLG guys. This is our first ever Hall of Flowers, so we are honored to be here. We thank Danny, we thank Rama, and I met Rory, and I met Gage. I've met so many of the guys here at Hall of Flowers. They do such an amazing, amazing job here. It is the capital of the legacy market. It is probably the most important go-to show in all of global cannabis. I would say, probably. I mean, I like Cannabis. I like MJ BizCon. There's some good ones out there, MJ Impact. But this show, it's where it's at. You really get a feel for what's going to happen in the future. And along those lines, I'm pleased to be joined by two of our guests here. We got Brian Ward from Arizona, legacy operator.
Thank you, Dean.
And we have Mr. Legend himself, DeAngelo. How you doing?
I am well, thank you. Good to be with you, Brian. Good to meet with you, Dimitri.
You know, we're interviewing all important individuals like yourselves, and when I saw you here today, I was like, is he here as a speaker? Is he here as an owner? Is he here as a brand? Is he here as I mean, you could be here in millions of different ways, different capacities. You are a legend and a legacy a guy yourself, but apparently you're here writing now.
Yes, today I'm a journalist for Forbes magazine. I'm writing about the state of the California cannabis industry. My beat, unsurprisingly, is cannabis and psychedelics. And so I'm here just to be a curious journalist and ask a lot of questions. And I'm not an owner-operator in California right now. And you need to be an owner-operator to be at this show. This is a B2B show, especially day one here is B2B. Not an owner-operator right now. Really wanted to learn about what's going on in California cannabis and also experience this wonderful activation you're having for social justice with the Beard Brothers, Raw, MITA, all the other sponsors that are doing this. This is what our community is all about. Not forgetting our brothers and sisters and anyone else in prison right now for cannabis, not just in the United States, all over the world. There are thousands and thousands, who knows how many people imprisoned all over the world for cannabis. We've had people executed in the last year globally for cannabis.
Really? I did not know that.
Yes, okay, in Southeast Asia.
That's crazy.
And so it is crazy, right? Crazy.
I'm going to take my club to them.
Yeah,
Wait,
crazy,
that's not a club.
crazy. Shout out to Raw, a big donor for social justice causes, and really love that company making wonderful papers out of sustainable hemp, and not bleaching the paper.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool, right? So these are the values, right, that we're trying to emulate in our industry, which is brutally difficult to have, benevolent values when you're dealing with the fuckery of all the frameworks and taxes and regulations and politicians and all this stuff that we have to deal with. It's very hard to find room in the budget for benevolence, but nevertheless, our culture, our community finds a way, right? And when there's a will, there's a way. So I'm just so thrilled to see that we're not forgetting where we come from here at Hall of Flowers.
Yeah, I'm an ex-prosecutor myself. Brian and I actually used to work at the prosecutor's office together. Mostly domestic violence, but we had our drug cases too.
Sure.
And it's still, and we were honored, MITA, to be invited to join what Beard Bros has brought so much attention to, and GLG, and to join them on doing the stage so we could bring attention, and not to just Edwin Rubis. And we're going to go on other podcasts in depth on the Edwin Rubis case, but as into the theme in general that, as you mentioned, you're still involved in, you've been involved in, your brother and you, and know better than anyone. It is It is atrocious. And when we were prosecuting, you never really thought about it. A crime's a crime. The government, the legislators, the people decide what the crimes are, and you just do your job. And most police officers do their job. They're not excited necessarily about murder or marijuana or alcohol. They don't rah rah rah. They just kind of do their thing. But it is tragic the ongoing misdemeanors and felonies that people are still suffering from, still incarcerated, like Mr. Rubis, and people's lives have been changed negatively in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I went this way and not that way because of the stupid war on drugs. It's incredible.
Yeah. And there's the Free Edwin campaign that's happening right now. There's also the Countdown to Clemency campaign that LPP is doing, Last Prisoner Project.
Yeah, shout out to Last Prisoner Project.
And
online.
Others are involved in that too. There's some other great organizations, Freedom Grow, 40 Tons. All these social justice organizations are all working to achieve the same goal, which is get everybody out of prison, right? And Joe Biden is a lame duck president, okay?
Right.
The man absolutely has nothing to lose.
Nothing to
use his clemency powers, he could release every single person from federal prison. He could release Edwin. He could release so many people that are locked up right now. There's so many names to name, we can't possibly name them all, right? And so that campaign, we've got until January 20. All right, a lot of times these clemencies happen the day before they leave office. You know how it works, man, with the governors in the state. It's the same way, that right before they're going out the door, they sign some clemency petitions, right? And so that's the campaign, because Biden's been terrible on cannabis clemency. He has not released not a single cannabis prisoner from prison.
That's probably because he was trying to court the moderate vote for the 2024 election and not be seen as too criminal justice reform oriented.
Too soft on crime.
Yeah, which is interesting because Trump, when he was on in the presidency, he didn't care and he did some criminal justice reform. And there's a lot of, not just marijuana, but there's a lot of criminal justice reform that needs to be done. There's a lot of different nuances, a lot of different angles.
Weldon Angelos was freed by President Trump, former President Trump. He's got his own organization, the Weldon Project. They do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And so, and even Trump, yes, Trump did release folks like Weldon, but he released like 6, 8, 12 people. And what we really want is thousands of people released all at once, right? Can you imagine, you talk about activating voters. Okay, so it's 2 days before the election, or maybe 1 day before the election, and 3,000 people walk out of federal lockup. The press would go crazy on that. You would drive all kinds of people to the polls, and it would be a sensation. Okay, it would be a social justice sensation. And that's the opportunity Biden and the Biden administration has right now, man. And it's like, you can court these moderate voters all you want, but that's not the base of the Democratic Party right now. It is not.
Look, and I think it's really time for that social change. That opportunity is there. The time is there. So
I agree with
something
you.
as quick as you can. I personally am so thrilled to be on the stage with you, for one, Andrew, and what Beer Bros and what this platform is giving to that. As a kid who grew up with never seeing his dad outside a glass, so it hits home for a lot of people, and I think there's a lot of impact that can happen for folks. So
your dad was in prison
a whole life. I never saw him outside a glass.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Wow.
I've
known him for 34 years.
I mean, that is.
You just don't talk about it that much. You don't talk about a lot of things that much.
No, but you can see, I can just see in your body language what an impact that had in your life, okay? Had to have a huge impact in your life. I remember visiting my brother in prison when I was 9 years old, and through the glass, right? And this was a federal lockup in the middle of Virginia, and you had to be 10 years old to visit. And my parents and I had to lie about my age to the cops. And my parents, like most parents, were abhorrent about lying. You couldn't lie. I mean, that was like the worst. If you lied and you got caught, you were definitely getting a whooping. I mean, it was going to happen. And so we were taught not to lie. And then all of a sudden, in order to see my brother who's locked up in prison, we all had to lie together to the cops. And,
Yeah.
you know, and in those days, kids didn't have IDs or anything like that. So the cop had to let us in.
You know, and you're so right about Biden being able to do something right now, because I could talk to you about I could speculate about the mess that Harris and potentially Trump are going to be, but Biden has nothing to lose. And if anybody out there is connected to Biden, remind him of this. This isn't like he's pardoning people or he's doing anything in regards to murders or things that might be somewhat controversial and the media might jump on him and say the Democrats are soft on crime. No, this is 70, 80%, 90% of Americans support cannabis legalization in some form or another. And to go back and deal with these cannabis-related crimes that are still impacting people negatively is a no-brainer. There's not going to be any negative press on this.
No.
Okay? If your aides are telling you that there's going to be negative press on this, they're wrong.
They're wrong. And even if there was negative press, Harris could distance herself from the clemency.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
She could say, oh, that wasn't me. I didn't sign the clemency petition. Biden did that. I would have done something much differently. And it doesn't, you know, there's always an out for these politicians.
Yeah.
They know how to slip their way through into that zone of tolerance, whatever they perceive that to be, for the so-called independent moderate voter that they think is the one that changes the election. But when you've got Donald Trump coming out with the sentence that I've been waiting for a national politician to say, which is basically, why do we still have people in prison for crimes that aren't crimes anymore? Biden's never said that. Harris has never said that. As far as I know, no national Democratic politician has ever said that. Maybe Cory Booker, maybe a couple people like that. But it's very rare.
Cory Booker has no fear.
It's very rare that you hear that, right? Because almost any other crime that you can think of, when it stops being a crime, everybody gets let out of prison right away. I mean, there's no it's not a crime anymore.
We can assume that Trump and Harris are, and let's keep on talking the subject because I like the subject. I know Brian has an opinion too. We can assume they're extremely intelligent individuals that see all these angles and all these possible scenarios and stuff. So let's just assume they're extraordinarily well informed. The issue for me on this whole campaign on who to support on this particular subject is that if Harris wins, she's going to be looking at her re-election 4 years out, and she's going to be thinking about how weighing what's right, and she knows what's right to help people, versus the perception, and she's going to be thinking about her re-election. And so you don't know what she's going to do. With Trump, he's not worried about his re-election. He's kind of random and all over the place, which is good and bad. But more important, he is pretty random and all over the place. But more importantly, the dude himself has now been railroaded through, in my personal opinion, through the system. He had 34 charges stacked against him for a misdemeanor. Okay, that usually just gets pled out as misdemeanor. So now when you're talking to him and saying, sir, Edwin, he was charged with a dozen crimes for simple marijuana transportation, and then he had all these years stacked against him. Hey, didn't that happen to you, buddy? And Trump's going to say, well, you know what? That did happen to me. And there's very few people that have been through this. And Brian, prosecutors can stack charges, and it has its good aspects and its negative aspects. It's to convince people to plead out. Yeah. And if you don't plead out and you're found guilty and there's mandatory sentencing, you're fucked.
That's right.
And I think, ultimately, knowing what's right and doing what's right is always the challenge, right? And it's a challenge for politicians. It's a challenge for people in everyday life. But, I've had the fortunate opportunity to work in a state like Maryland, where Governor Moore just pardoned 175,000 people. Can you imagine what the impacts would be at a federal level for states to have a green light to actually do something, to actually put that forth? I mean, it's incredible.
And he's a first-term politician, so he's up for re-election, and he still did that. And as far as I can tell, I'm not in Maryland, but as far as I can tell, zero political blowback. And in fact, a whole bunch of good press that earned media he got from that that he didn't have to pay one dime for.
Right. Well, we're going to talk a lot more about Edwin during the day. Let's real quickly talk back to you. What are you finding here? Have you just walked in?
I just walked in. I mean, the thing just opened. So, the first thing I saw was this activation with the Beard Brothers, and I immediately came over. I saw you, and we're talking.
This is the game day format.
Well, you're also positioned right here where everybody comes in,
right?
And so you can pick off your speakers,
the legends,
yeah, or just anybody,
Yes.
anyone that has a contribution to make. This campaign needs to be carried forth. The Free Edwin campaign needs to be carried forth. Doesn't matter if you're a legend, doesn't matter if you're brand new in the industry, doesn't matter if you're a bud tender, doesn't matter what you are, okay? Push the campaign out, get on your socials. It's all out there. Beard Brothers has all the assets you need. And LPP has assets. All kinds of people have assets.
Last Prisoner Project.
Last Prisoner Project has assets. All kinds of different justice organizations have these assets. And just jump on the campaign. It takes you 2 minutes, to do a post.
Let's do this. You got 2 days of research.
I do.
For your Forbes article here.
Yes,
okay?
I do.
So will you catch up with us at the end of the day tomorrow?
Yeah.
And let us know what you found?
Yeah, because
we just created a roving reporter for MITA Unshackled.
All right, man, you got it. I'll be here tomorrow evening.
I always see the angle.
Yeah, no. It'd be good to give the State of the Union. Yeah.
That's awesome. The State of Hall of Flowers.
Yeah.
We're going to have the first ever State of Hall of Flowers report. Okay. So we don't want to keep you. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for being here.
And let's
Brian,
get you to,
great to meet you.
Pleasure.
Let's get you to symbolically. You probably signed this already.
Hey, give it
but
to
it's
me.
the Edwin Rubis form. We're getting all of our guests to sign those.
Absolutely.
And people that come by. So thank you for joining us. Say hello to your family. Love the shoes. Love the shirt. Love the vibe. Love everything about you. And we'll catch you at the end of the day tomorrow. Is that cool?
Absolutely, man.
All right. And Brian will be back on others. We're gonna drag those. I didn't know your father was in jail. And I've been his friend for 20, 30 years. We're gonna get more information out of Brian Ward later.
I know. Well, this subject brings out things in people. You
Right.
know, it really does, and you'll see that throughout your whole 2 days here.
That's why we call it Unshackled, because there's no limits.
Yeah, man.
We'll talk about anything. We'll be back with another episode of Meat Unshackled from the Hall of Flowers.